Good evening. I am live and I figured since I would be at the desk doing my nails tonight, it would be a good time to pop on, see who's around, and talk about this subject matter, which has been on my mind. Oh, Seth, thank you. Merry belated. We say Merry belated Christmas? Is that the appropriate way to say it? In some religions, they're still celebrating Christmas, or they've yet to. So, Merry Christmas to you. I hope you had a nice one. Mine was pretty good, I think, all things considered. Someone messaged me, one of my friends today, about like, what are you doing for New Year's? And I was like, ain't no way I'm staying up past midnight for anyone or anything. I am not big on New Year's. I will have the day off, obviously, but I mean, it also like at the end of December, beginning of January, of all the times I don't want to be up past midnight, that is pretty high on the list. But I guess people want to go out and do things on New Year's Eve. It's just not for me. I don't know. I find these kind of holidays are just more trouble than they're worth. You know, you go out, there's always more people out than there should be. A lot of people who aren't used to partying, or, you know, they only party on specific occasions. So they get, you know, a little crazy. Well, that's good. See, that's a good way to spend New Year's. If you're working as a bartender, then yeah, New Year's is a great night to work. Hopefully nobody goes crazy. But yeah, I do like having a new year. You know, I do enjoy celebrating that. It's a marvelous thing to have a new year upon us and to have new opportunities and just the excitement of it. I feel though like this last week of December is always a drag. I have been dragging this week. Just ugh. Today I got some momentum back. Like I actually got some. I mean, I've gotten work done every day, but this day it felt like, okay, leaving, I felt a little bit better about the state I was leaving my desk in. But it's yeah, this time of year is just, I don't know why. I need to get one of those jobs where you just have the last week of the year off, you know? I don't know, one of those careers. Because that would be preferable. I suppose I could like request this time off too, but I feel like that wouldn't be any better. Like I'd just be in a slump anyway, regardless of whether I was working or not. And it's not like, you know, I have any real reason to take the week off other than it's always like difficult working this week. But tomorrow's Friday. So, is it? Maybe it is. Oh God, I don't know. I think it is. Yeah, I'm glad you can relate, Seth. It's just, yeah, it's the roughest week of the year to get through. I think it's just, I don't know, something about it. I think it's just that Christmas is over and there's always like that kind of sad realization that it was all just, it's all over, you know? And we have to get back to living a normal life. And, you know, many people just do too much during the holidays, whether it's like eating, drinking, spending. So I think there's a lot of that dread and everything. I don't know. It's just, everything just seems harder. The beginning of winter, I definitely feel the beginning of winter. I always feel the seasons as they come on, there's always like some kind of reaction I have physically to the changing season. But winter is always a doozy. I think it's because it's the hardest season. It really is. There's so much about it that's challenging to us as humans, and it's really, we get down to the bare knuckles of life. We get down to really the truth of our existence in winter. We can kind of run from ourselves in the other seasons, but winter is like the time when we really do kind of get stuck with ourselves and we have to analyze ourselves more. Hi, Chickpea. Welcome to the live stream. So this topic on the individual, I'm glad you all clicked on it today. That means you must care about the individual or just hearing me talk in general. I thought it'd be important to come on and talk about the individual because I feel that the individual is often neglected when we talk about so many different matters, when we discuss politics, social issues, dynamics between different groups of people. But I feel honestly, the individual is probably the most oppressed of any group of people. Obviously an individual is not a group, but if you were to look at how the individual is treated compared to being lumped into a group, the individual is pretty much always sacrificed for the collective. And it is extremely difficult. There are a lot of challenges to being a true individual in this culture. If you stick your neck out, you're likely to you get noticed. And then when you get noticed and that you're not conforming to whatever the group is wanting, there's a danger in that. So there's a danger inherent in being an individual. And we see this with people who go against whatever social norm there is. It's the odd one out. And yeah, the funny thing in our current climate, there's so much discussion of diversity and equity and all of that. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's the new jargon, isn't it, that they're pushing on us? Well, I've noticed that within the concept of diversity, equity, and inclusion, there isn't much room made for people to be different or to be individuals. Even within that concept, people still have to conform to the basic ideology that everyone is under. And that is incredibly difficult. It's like the machine, the system, the man, however you want to put it. People have different terms, Whatever it is, they have ways of just co-opting co-opting liberation, freedom, all of these concepts, and inverting them to mean the exact opposite of what they actually mean. So diversity never seems to include diversity of thought, opinion, faith, even. It always seems to be about something related to what group you can be lumped in with. But it isn't about your unique right to be an individual and to be seen and heard as an individual. And I guess, there's safety in numbers. It's easier to be lumped in with a group. And that's been my kind of struggle in the past years since kind of going through all of my political, spiritual awakenings, as it were. I don't want to be identified with any groups. I'm really hesitant to be labeled. I really am label averse. And I used to think people who were like that were maybe cowardly in some way. And maybe I am cowardly in some way. I don't want to put a label on myself generally because I feel like that is something then you have to live up to. And of course, there's things I want to live up to. There's values and philosophies and beliefs that I do aspire to live up to. But yeah, it just seems like labeling oneself. The thing with labeling oneself it's not just about like living up to it. It's about the fact that when you put a label on yourself, some part of you is erased. Like your individuality is erased and you become part of this group, and then you become part of this faction, and then you become part of this, polarized way of thinking, And I'm really averse to that now because it's done damage in my own life, and not only just in my own life, I've witnessed it do damage in other people's lives as well. I talk about it's done damage in my life. Trust me, what I've been through is nothing compared to what I've seen other people go through from this kind of labeling and groupthink. Hi, Resonate. That's a nice name, Resonate. Spooky image you have. There's more freedom being in the individual. There is too, and I think that's part of it. Like, I'm tired of. Well, I wasn't tired. I was very tired of people feeling like I owed them something because of like whatever label was on me. That's the other thing too. When you put a label on yourself, you take on some kind of responsibility for others in some ways. The image was made by AI. Oh my. Interesting. Yeah, I haven't played around with any of the AI imagery stuff. I do have like friends who have, God, I haven't seen her in like forever. My friend Kathy, she's been doing some really interesting stuff with AI. She was showing me how she's been using it. And I see other people use it as well. I mean, she had me do that isn't true. She had me do a few images on her account, like to play around with it to see what it was like. But yeah, it's just such a rabbit hole. You can get so sucked into it, can't you? You just crafting the perfect images. And some of them are really funny too, like the AI art, but I don't know. Then there's part of me that feels like a line's being crossed sometimes. I really haven't worked out how I truly feel about AI. And I'm realizing now that I need more light here because I like I said, I came on to do my nails. Oof, the light. Let there be light. Look at that skin reflecting light as mine does. Ugh. So yeah, I think that, or I do now have this strong aversion to being labeled or putting labels on myself. And the other thing too, the other thing about labeling yourself is like you can get turned into a commodity. It's just a way for people to consume you, to sell you or that kind of thing as well. Do I have clippers here? Oh dear. Yeah, so I was thinking about that because what's that song called? There's a song by the group The Au Pairs. Stepping Out of Line. That's what it's called. Stepping Out of Line. And so funny. A lot of my my beliefs and philosophy come from punk music. Or just music in general. It's such a great medium to express complex ideas like what I'm talking about. But yeah, there's a line in it that's like, gotta find you a label. I don't remember the next line. Gotta find you a label. Just as soon as we're able, we'll put you in a paper bag. We've got you summed up. We've got you defined. And you're stepping out of line. Obviously, there's more lyrics, but it's pretty deep thinking about that because this is what we struggle with as humanity. As soon as we get a label stuck to us, it kind of limits us in some way, which is why so many artists specifically run from labels, especially like musicians. Like getting a label of like what kind of music you're making can be devastating to a band. Can it? Because you get put in this one category and then people are less likely to search you out and find you. Even if like it may fit very well, it may be a label that fits very well. A lot of people get really averse to that because once you're summed up and defined, you're kind of packaged and sold in that way. And it's really difficult to break out of that mold. But for me, in my own life, figuring out that I didn't want to be labeled anymore, it was like painful. It kind of came to me one day. I remember like just waking up and like thinking about everything that I'd created out there about me, all of my social media and even this channel. And I was like, I just want to scrub it all out, and I eventually did like delete my Twitter, for example, but that wasn't even the worst. I mean, my Twitter was pretty good most of the time, but it was a big time suck. But, there was just so much that was just like, why have I let myself, me, this individual, this expansive human being, why have I let myself get so small? Like, why have I made myself so small? Why have I made myself so niche? And, there's nothing wrong with like having a niche or filling a niche, but like, I really felt like I'd done myself a big disservice. And it was painful to me to like realize that. It was really painful. I was like, man, I've really just gotten sucked into this whole world and I've let it consume me. And like I've been lost. I have been lost in this desire to be part of something bigger, this big group. I guess I was kind of inspired by this today because I was watching a video by Grace Adetoro. She was talking about a woman that she'd unfollowed on Twitter who was, I guess, was a radical feminist or was identifying as a radical feminist and isn't anymore. And, was kind of getting into some debates with people in the comments section of her Instagram or something about her differences with radical feminism and how she just isn't for it. And I guess she's not for feminism at all either, which has been my kind of experience as well. Because coming out of like identifying as a radical feminist, like I'd already rejected liberal feminism for a long time. I knew it was stupid, just very stupid. But I didn't realize how stupid radical feminism was too. I don't know. And I don't know what what was so important to me about feminism itself, and there is some good in it. I don't want to say it's all stupid. It's not all stupid. I really do. I did learn a lot and get a lot from reading a lot of these women and analyzing how I saw myself, how I saw other women, how I behaved, those kind of things. I really appreciate the deeper feminism that's out there, which I would say is just, or maybe it's more, I don't want to say womanism, because, you can't say womanism. It's not even an ism. It's just, and again, these women, they're so much bigger than just feminism. I guess that's what I want to say. Like when I think about some of the insight and depth of some of these women that I've read that I wouldn't have read otherwise, their insight has something to do with all of humanity and the human experience. It should not just be, again, marketed and labeled and put in a box labeled feminism. Because if you have something truly insightful to say, if you have something that is important for all of humanity, why is it put under a label that only certain people are going to be interested in? It's a way, again, of I think it's a way of ghettoizing women as well. Women thinkers often get ghettoized into that. It's a way of, making you smaller, making you niche, making you only relevant to a certain demographic, even though what you're saying and thinking is important for all of humanity. And I think that happens to women a lot that are like intellectuals. We can't ever, I don't put myself in there, but women seem to have this issue with breaking out of that gendered sort of box. Is just enough, even if you are somehow challenging the idea of gender altogether in some way with your work, which I don't know that they do, but that's a whole other conversation. Gender is like, so many people are wrong about that. So many people do not understand what it is and what it isn't. And the way it's currently defined is really silly. But yeah, anyway, this woman was kind of putting forward her disagreements with radical feminism specifically. And one of the things that she had mentioned was the antinatalism that is prevalent within that mindset, which is a problem. I agree. And that is one of the reasons why I found myself kind of stepping back and being like, even though been in that mindset for a long time. Like, oh yeah, it's so evil to have children. Like, what a crazy mindset. I don't know what happened to me. I don't know exactly what happened, but I just woke up. I know that it was a series of events. It didn't happen overnight, but like one night or one day I just woke up and it was just, I could not take it anymore. I could not take the pressure of it anymore. And I could not take like the destructiveness of it anymore. There's something in my soul was like crying out saying, this is wrong. And yeah, the antinatalism, which, you know, not every radical feminist believes, obviously, but it is a big component. Like a lot of them. When I first started kind of talking about this stuff and how I'd changed my mind in a lot of ways, I remember some woman in my chat like going off about antinatalism, and she was just like, it was disturbing, honestly. I don't think sometimes people realize how disturbing their rhetoric actually is, because they're so used to it and they're in this like internet bubble that makes them think that the very extreme disturbing things they're saying are justified and moral and true. It's wild. Thank you. You like my hat? I like this hat too. Hello, Mark Adams. I'm an individual who owns my own caliphate. What's a caliphate? What's that? The hate for children is why. Yeah. You know what? Hate for children is pretty prominent in the culture generally, and it is wild. How do you hate? Like, and again, I got sucked into it a bit too. I think I hated being a child, but I don't hate children at all. Like, I look at them now and I just see like how precious they are and their potential, and I generally love them very much and I want the best for them. I love just having the interactions I do with them. It's so remarkable. It's so remarkable. I play it so fast. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, I know. But again, it's like, there were times as a kid when I was rowdy, not so much in public, but then, again, is it the kid's fault? I think oftentimes too, what we lack in this culture is a sense of adult spaces versus children's spaces, or like everybody's spaces. And we have a problem where a lot of people who don't like kids seem to think that the spaces for everyone should be only for adults. And that is not the case. That is not the case. Mark believes that we should not have children as a human race. Huh. Interesting. I was just talking about this, the antinatalism. Okay, a caliphate is a couple of acres. Well, a couple of acres is great to have. I don't have any acres. I have a couple of inches in the North Pole. Although I don't know if I even have those deeds anymore from Santa. And not in the North Pole, in North Pole, Alaska, I should say, which is not at the North Pole. I wish I would have had more kids. How many kids do you have? I don't have any. I do not have any. Obviously, because I'm on here so much. I agree with Schopenhauer that having children is torture the children, but I'm a doomer. Oh, I suppose, yeah. I don't know. I am not a doomer. I believe in the future. I know it's going to happen. My favorite thing is when I get to tell young people that are being all doom and gloomy about their future, saying they don't have to do anything because the world's going to end. I like to remind them that it isn't. I like to be like, that's not going to happen. You're going to have to live. If you live long enough, you're going to have to deal with the fact that you didn't do anything with your youth. Let's see. Chan says another factor contributing to antinatalism is the infantilization of society. Adulthood has now surmounted to an extent in adolescence, especially in major cities. I suppose, yeah. Sometimes I feel like that, like I'm not as mature as I could be. But again, it's like it's also probably important not to compare. I am mature in some ways that other people are not. So I try not to compare my lifestyle to others. I wanted this lifestyle, I wanted to live in a major city. I wanted to, have the kind of lifestyle that I do. I enjoy it, and I'm responsible for building my own life. I enjoy living in a city. I think it's more natural for me to live in a city. I don't like being out in the country. I don't like being in a rural area. I don't like being in a small town. It does not suit me. That being said, the city can be full of, overgrown children a lot of the times. But I don't feel it has to be that way. I think it's just also somewhat of a generational thing. That does make it difficult. and yeah, adoption and surrogacy bother me too. So, Mark confronted me back in the day, but you were not into survivalism. No, I'm not. I can't be into survivalism. It's not for me, What did you confront me about? Oh my. Gotta move these legs. And play it so fast. As a 20 or 25-year-old born when you were 18. Well, yeah, you started young. Man, I can't imagine having a kid at 18. I'd be like, if I had a kid at 18, they'd probably be grown now, wouldn't they? Almost. Yeah, they would. Yeah, I think, there's something inherently traumatic about being adopted, period. The people I know who've been adopted definitely have that kind of feeling of non-belonging. They carry that through their life, even if they have a good family that they go to, and it can be rather exploitative. And yeah, everyone I know that's been adopted has wounds from it, and it's one of those difficult things. But I mean, at the same time, like, you wonder, like, well, who's going to take care of these kids? Like, and if someone does surrender their kid, like, and someone else is able to provide for them, like, it's difficult. It's really difficult to say. I don't know. I think it's one of those kind of complex issues, but I generally am tend to be more critical of adoption. People in work camps will eat good food. Well, I hope so if they're working. I have an e-cargo bike out in the country. E-cargo bike. I don't know. What's an e-cargo bike? I don't know what you're talking about. No, and survivalism, I'm not in. I can't be into survivalism. I can't. It's just not. It's one of the, I am destined for better or worse to have to exist in a city. And honestly, if, Western civilization falls, I don't know. I'm fine going with it, I think. Oh well, maybe that makes me weak, but my ancestors have survived through a lot, and I feel like some of my kin will continue to survive, but for me, yeah, just a little too weak for that. I'm just a little too weak for that. It's good to know one's limitations, I admire people who are into that. I think that's a great thing to get into, but for some of us, it just isn't really possible. Is like e-cargo bike, is it one of those I'm thinking of the city bikes that we have, but I'm thinking it might be something else. It was cool with that confrontation. Well, I don't know what it was. You get to travel when you are 36. I don't really know what you're responding to. What are you responding to? You get to travel when you're 36. Did I travel when I was 36? I did. It was a small trip. I went up to Seattle. Took the plane and everything. Went to see my favorite band performing in America in their first night in America in over 20 years. They hadn't been here since 1997. And I got to be there in Seattle in their first night of their American tour. And obviously not their North American tour. They'd been in Canada already, but it was cool because I always thought I'd have to travel out of the country to see them, and to not have to was really awesome. And it was a fun little trip. I like to go on those little trips by myself. It was nice to do it and to feel independent as well, because I think since kind of becoming more disabled, I've felt like I've had to rely on people more. And that trip kind of gave me some confidence in thinking that, okay, you know what? I don't always have to rely on other people. I can still have some level of independence. I think that was meaningful for me about that trip. But yeah, I was 36 when that happened, wasn't I? Because, yeah, it was November 5th. I don't think I went out of town last year, did I? No, wow. We'll have to remedy that this year, I think. Oh, I didn't think you were dissing me. No, I think, it's important to defend the city life. I mean, humans have lived in cities for, how many generations and throughout how many civilizations. The city is the place to be. Yeah, it's where everything goes down, but that kind of makes it exciting, There's life here, that's vibrant. It's exciting. I swear, this nail still is giving me guff. Oh, yeah. How was your trip to Seattle? I love Seattle. Not as much as I love it here, but it is a beautiful place. I love the water. I love coming in and just the expansiveness of it too. It's a big place. I love that about the city. It's also where my dad was born, so it has that kind of specialness to it, I guess. I feel like, oh, this is the land where my daddy was born. No, wild nature is the way to go. I mean, yeah, if for you, I can't really wheel around on trails and such. It doesn't work that way. It's not. I can't get a latte out in the middle of nowhere. It doesn't work. It's not for me. How was Leavenworth? Yeah, it sounded nice. I saw some pictures you posted about it. It looked cute and stuff. I don't know if you posted Leavenworth exactly, but I did see some, photos of your trip. Anyway, we're kind of chatting a bit here. What was I saying about the individual? Yeah, the individual versus the collective. I guess, something that I find or that I admire in people is in their individuality. And individuality isn't even that is made and marketed and something to be consumed, but it's so much deeper, and it comes down to the way a person is, the way they express themselves, the way their style, it's their habits and routines, their functions. I love people that just do their own thing and aren't bothered. I think it's so admirable, and it's so rare. And it can look a lot of different ways, Sometimes it looks like, they'll have a very unique, very eccentric style. Obviously, that's one of the ways. But sometimes it comes down to just not conforming or, speaking one's mind and not being afraid of other people's opinions. I love a person that's not afraid to be disagreeable, Somebody who isn't afraid to say something that might be controversial, or, someone who isn't trying to just get along. Some of the most dangerous and boring people are the people that are just trying to get along, or, not make any waves and just get liked. It's a tragedy dealing with that. So yeah, individuality, it comes down to the essence of who that person is, and if they're really willing to be upright in that and to stand by what they believe and to to speak up, even if it's not popular. Good. I'm glad you had fun. Sometimes it too is there's a little bit of maybe trolliness in it too. I like people who aren't afraid to, offend people, and who maybe even do it as like a way, who like provoke people just to, I want to say stir the pot, but it's more than just that. Sometimes there is a real art to it, bringing out the true nature behind what people are saying and thinking, but it requires kind of that subtlety that only a good trolling can bring about. That is another way that the individual manifests themselves. Because regardless of where you are, there's going to be certain expectations, placed on your level of conformity or allegiance to whatever the group as it's defined thinks and says. And it's always nice in those circumstances to see that people can step out and can kind of stand on their own 2 feet, and even if they're made fun of or judged for it, actually express what is true. It's admirable. A lot of people don't do that. Because of that too, because of the individual, because of them, things actually an individual can have a really great impact, is what I'm trying to say. Like, one individual who is not trying to be agreeable, who's not trying to go along to get along, can have a really great impact. They can actually disrupt the groupthink. They can actually disrupt the hive mind that often settles in people. It can actually awaken others. Maybe a person isn't strong enough on their own to question it, but if they hear someone else who is, it makes it easier to kind of separate for them. So even one individual going out on a limb and disagreeing or being true to who it is they are, what they believe in, can really, really have a ripple effect. And if they hadn't been there, then, people who are weaker may get swept up. I mean, that's the power of the individual. The individual actually like helps to protect the integrity of everyone. When you look at it that way, the individual is actually this agent that can stop people from going too far, stop people from betraying themselves. It's hard though, and it's not always clear. Like, Because I've been in circumstances where people are saying things I don't agree with, but it can be like challenging sometimes to know, like, is this the time or place? Is it even worth airing my disagreement here? Because it's not going to really change anything. It might actually just be disruptive to me. I've had those kind of experiences sometimes where it's just, I don't know. Maybe it's just that it's not, things aren't being said directly to me. If something is said directly to me, I will challenge it. But if I'm in like I don't know, I was at an event recently where people were kind of all going on about something. I mean, a lot of people were, like speaker after speaker, just taking a position I don't hold. And I knew that I would be exposed to that going in. And I would just, I just kind of sat there kind of grinning and bear it, because I felt like, this isn't really the best time or place to air my disagreement. I am, I think, I was just kind of there observing and kind of in my own way. Obviously I didn't like clap or cheer when everyone was in agreement. Like, I kind of kept that to myself, but I was just kind of observing and thinking, how I want to address this, when I want to address it, how I'm going to go about it. Is it even worth it? Because sometimes you think sometimes people are really far gone too. Sometimes people are so wrapped up in their ideology or belief that it's you wonder, like, is it even worth it to have this conversation? I guess I've been having that recently, come up with this. Like, I don't know. And then at the same time, I also have this mindset that I don't really have the energy to be going hard about anything, really, especially when it comes to like politics. Like, I don't have it. I really don't have the energy to be really representing anyone or anything at this point in my life. It's not for me. It's that time has passed in my life where I feel confident about that. Not only confident about it, I probably feel more confident about it now than I did in the past, because I've definitely got experience and insight, but I don't have the energy. I don't really have the energy to get into certain arguments. So now I'm talking about this, I'm like, But there are circumstances where I do feel like it isn't even worth it to really disagree. You can just kind of observe and recognize that you're not part of the group. But you can observe the group from the outside and kind of make your own judgment about it and what it means. I think, that is part of being an individual as well. Is like, you often do end up feeling like an outsider. You often do end up feeling like you don't belong anywhere. And you don't. You really don't. Like, there's no place for you when you are different, when you think different, when you think for yourself, when you don't take on other people's opinions as your own, or you don't let other people form your opinions for you, but you actually bother to sit and do them yourself. There's not much room for you out there, is there? It's kind of a lonely space to be in. It's much easier for people to kind of find a thought leader and to kind of rally behind them, but to be your own leader, it can be very lonely, because a lot of times when you do try to talk to people or confront them, they can't articulate their beliefs well. And then it's like you're wasting your breath on something or someone that really isn't even capable of comprehending where you're coming from, because they don't know where they're coming from. If only individualism was about style, it'd be a lot more simple. Sometimes it is. I do like people who have unique styles. It does stand out, you know, even in a world where it's like more popular for people, you know, or a lot of people do spend a lot of money on clothing. Style is still something that isn't really teachable. I mean, it is to a certain extent, but it's not. It's something that people either have or they don't. And when somebody does have unique style, or if they make their own clothing, I love that. You know, and even if they don't make like the actual, like they don't sew the fabrics together, that kind of thing, but they take existing clothing and they do things to it. I always find that interesting. I actually befriended a woman based on that. Like, I just loved her style. She had like the way she looked, the way she dressed, and she did these like jackets. She still does them, but she like paints these really incredible, they're like works of art. I don't know how to describe them. She uses all kinds of different media to build these jackets, and some of it is paint, some of it is like other, you know, materials, but they end up, you know, becoming really intricate works of art that tell a story. Jackets, like jean jackets. I don't know. And then I remember, like, as a teenager, I befriended some, I don't know how to describe them, punks, you know, punk kids who were very creative. And I think that's what I liked about it, as liked about them. They had that like DIY mentality, and that they were very creative. You know, they were people that I could like hang out with and create with, make clothing. Especially, like, there were many times we did stenciling and, you know, made shirts and different things. And then we did some what's it called, screen printing. Yeah, screen printing. We did screen print t-shirts, things like that. We, you know, embellish our clothing with different things, like you know, those little pyramids. You can buy those little pyramids and put them on your clothing. They're very popular. I haven't done anything like that in years, and I don't think I would, you know, wear anything like that now. My style has definitely changed. But, you know, or, you know, they inspired me like to do that to my shoes. Like, I had a number of shoes that I'd written on or drawn on, you know, or I did have a shirt that I did that with as well. Like, I had this shirt that I had, it was a white button up, and I'd taken Sharpie to it, and on the front I'd written things that I liked, and on the back I wrote things that I didn't like. And that was yeah, my statement shirt. And actually looked really cool. Like, it looked pretty cool. So there's aspects of like individuality that I think are cool. Like, when people actually take time and effort and are creative, or like people who know how to make their own clothing, like, it's fascinating. I think, you know, that's a big part of why like the Drag Race show became so popular. You know, just for an example, it's not just that people are obsessed with, you know, everything LGBT and drag and that kind of thing. I think the thing that people are really fascinated was the fact that, you know, these people, a lot of them, watching them create costumes. watching them put together these looks. I mean, there's a human fascination with it. It's unusual. Not everybody does that. So, but it's unusual in a way that people appreciate because people like that kind of thing. I mean, it's just kind of like the Project Runway effect, right? People loved that show. People love to see these artistic visions come to life. And I think because so many people lack sewing skills, like those kind of basic skills of how to sew and how to read patterns and how to like actually work with those materials, it takes on a whole other level of fascination. So yeah, I would say that about that particular show. I've only watched like 2 episodes, so I'm really no expert, but I do think that that's part of the fascination with it. It is the fact that you do see these unique individuals doing something that is different. Anytime something different is going on, something out of the ordinary, it has this potential to fascinate others and to draw other people in, regardless of what it is. It has this power over the imagination because, again, the individual is a commodity. You put a label on yourself, you will become a commodity. And if you remain an individual, like, you can become a commodity in that too. Moral of the story, we have come full circle. But anyway, I think I'm going to take off. Thank you all for being here with me tonight, listening to me talk about this. Thank you to those in the chat for your comments. And I'll see you another time. Yeah.